Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of The Edge on IC Radio. We are your source for news and entertainment. You can download the free app, listen anytime you want to, but if you want to watch us, sometimes we have widgets, and you need to be able to see that widget. So if you want to watch us, you can find us on channel 182, which is on Charter Communications. That's North Alabama. And so you can watch us that way. You can also find us syndicated, on Abundant TV, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. I've got Brian Brown with me right now. You're with the Auburn Extension Service. You're a teacher. You're a everything. You're even into filmmaking right now.
I dabble. I dabble in a little bit of everything. So, unfortunately.
Well, no, I think it's fortunate because now you're going to start giving me tips on the show what I need to be doing. So that's going to come out great. And I'm saying this, you are my mentor. And I've learned so much and I'm going to encourage you to take the Master Gardener program.
Yeah. So Donna's here's a intern for us this semester. We have a Master Gardener class. We call them interns. So the people who take the class, they're called interns.
He could be my son, and I'm intern.
Yeah. So we, we train people, about basic horticulture things. So how to, from gardens and landscapes to pest and disease. I mean, it's the whole gamut of horticulture. So, so hopefully you're learning a lot,
I'm
right?
Learning a lot. You're going to find this really strange. Actually, the one I've enjoyed the most is the bugs one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the insects. I like insects.
So what was the thing that was most interesting to you?
Well, there are good ones and there are bad ones, and most of them are good.
Yeah.
We just concentrate on the bad ones.
Well, there's a lot of bad ones too. So, but yeah, most of them are good.
Okay.
Most of them are good. There's pollinators, and a lot of people don't realize the things that are actually pollinators. So things like wasps, for example, they are a nuisance. They build on our houses. But they are pollinators. There's a lot of things that they pollinate. So
I'm learning to love them.
Yeah. So now, if I have them on my house, I'm going to nuke them and just get rid of them. But they are helpful to the environment. So there's a lot of other bugs out there that you may be scared of that you probably shouldn't be. But for example, snakes. I don't like snakes. I don't like any snake. I think they're evil, but they are beneficial. I mean, not every one of them. Very rarely you come across a poisonous one, but or not poisonous. Venomous. Sorry, my friend would be really offended
bit by any of them.
if it's venomous or not. But we only have like 5 in Alabama that are venomous. So, but anyway, there are good ones out there. So just like bugs. So
I'm looking at it a whole new way. The rat snakes. Is that what you call them? What's the official name for that? My granddad would say, "Leave him alone. He's a rat snake."
I don't know officially because I'm not a herpetologist. So. But yeah, I don't like them. I don't want to be around them. So.
But something that's really amazing, and I've only we've been living here since 2013, the farm my granddad had, and so I've only seen one snake since we've moved here.
Wow!
But now Phil and Mother have seen several. So does that mean they're more wicked than I am?
It may be. Maybe they're being tempted more.
It could be, but I've only seen one. And but I think my dog has a lot to do with that. He hangs out. And,
probably so.
When I'm out in the yard doing stuff. But I'm learning so much, and I learned a lot about landscaping. Now that's your forte. There,
it is. Too. That's kind of my bread and butter. That's what I'm really the most experienced and have the most knowledge about. So. I'm more comfortable with that. And I do know something about gardening and things, but I really know landscaping much better. So.
Well, now people are beginning to get into landscaping right now. What are some do's and don'ts? What should you not do?
Can
I say
for right now?
Gravel, rocks, those little tiny gravels.
Yeah.
No.
I think one of the most common things that people do that I just despise is landscape fabric. So the little thin landscape fabric you can pick up at your box store. It does
you
nothing.
spend a lot of money on that.
Yeah, it's not cheap, and people put them out and they think it prevents weeds, and it doesn't. Weeds are going to go right through it. It degrades. Most of the time you'll have some, maybe your dog or neighbor's dog will dig into it and just rip it all to pieces, and it's not worth the effort. We try to recommend people to do about 4 inches deep of mulch. So we do, there's different kinds of mulches. Most commonly here in Alabama, we use pine bark mulch, and it's like the pine bark mini nuggets is what they call it. So just the little, maybe an inch or two wide. Those about 4 inches deep is what we recommend for mulch.
Okay.
If it's near a tree, make sure you get it away from the trunk of the tree. So pull it back away from the trunk of the tree. And then don't mound it up. Don't make a mulch volcano. Those are really bad. What will happen, and I've got some pictures I wish I could show you, but some people would build a mulch volcano, and what happens that mulch, the pine bark will break down, and it kind of becomes like a soil. And so the roots will actually grow up into that mound, and then the tree dies of drought.
Oh,
So
goodness.
I've diagnosed
And I
no
have
telling
done
how
that
many of
before.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful with that. So just make sure 3 to 4 inches is what we recommend for mulches. So no landscape fabric. Do not do that.
No, don't. You're just wasting money. I'll attest to
Yeah.
that as well. What about people who put down plastic? Like maybe plastic, the tough plastic.
Just as a mulch or just
Keep weeds out.
um.
Because I've seen people raise strawberries that way.
So okay, so
They'll put
that's
something like that
that's
down.
different. That absolutely works. There's a couple reasons why they use plastic. One, it does keep down weeds, except for nutsedge. Nutsedge is a really, really bad weed.
That's another evil thing brought on us.
Yeah, so nutsedge.
The curse from the garden with Adam and Eve.
Yeah, that's right. So not only does it have a very, very spiky blade on the leaf, it will poke through any of the plastic, but also it has like a little nodules, so it grows. I don't think they're rhizomes. I can't remember what they're called, but I think they're just a tuberous plant, and they grow underground, so they don't spread like normal grasses would. Hard to kill, very, very hard to kill. There are some chemicals out there that will kill them, but nonetheless, plastic mulches around strawberries or in your garden is excellent. A lot of times they'll use different colored mulches, and actually a friend of mine, he did a study for his master's degree about different colored mulches. And like, let's say you use a white mulch. So used to they would use black plastic, and a lot of times they can use black plastic to increase the soil temperature. But now they will use something reflective, so they'll use like a white mulch, and so that reflects light onto the bottom side of that leaf. And so you have your leaf here, and you have that white mulch here. The sun hits it and bounces up and shines on the bottom of that leaf. Well, most insects, especially aphids, like to hang out on the bottom side of a leaf. So if you shine sunlight on the bottom of that leaf, it will drive away the aphids. So it's kind of a cultural practice. So we talked about IPM,
right?
Integrated pest management. That is one of the methods of integrated pest management is cultural practices. And so that is a cultural practice where you use white mulch, or white plastic mulch is what they call it. It's just white plastic, and they mound it up. There's tractor implements that will do this for you. And you mound that up, and then that will reflect on the bottom side of those leaves and drive away a lot of insects. So you don't get as much insect pressure. So
makes a lot of sense. I guess that's what I'm going to be doing. Walmart is one of our sponsors as well, so I think I'll be taking a trip to Walmart.
Yeah.
And Lowe's is one of our new sponsors as well, so we appreciate Lowe's coming in as well. So we're talking about landscaping. I have seen some, and I'm not a landscaper like you, but I'm going to tell you something that drives me crazy, and that's when I look at somebody's yard and they have like just stuff, and it's all pretty stuff. But the problem is I'm looking at it through my eyeballs, and I'm seeing a big plant, and it's hiding all the pretty things behind it. What's the proper way?
So there's a couple of different things you could do there. We like to do one of our landscape design principles is scale. And so what we like to do is, if you have especially a larger building, we like to step it down to human size, we'll call it that. But we like to step that down. So you want to put your larger plants closer to your house, or, not too close so it's growing into the house, but just enough.
That's got to watch the roots, right?
Yeah, you got to watch. It depends on the
Mhm.
plant, but yeah, you want to plant it far enough away, and that's where knowing your plants comes into play.
Mhm.
How far out to plant them, but you typically want to use your larger plants in the background, and
Mhm.
then you kind of step them down, and then you put something like, let's say, hollies. I love hollies. Um, you put those in the back, and they're solid colored, and then you step that down, and maybe you put like a flowering shrub to kind of, we talked about contrast. That's another thing you can use in
You
your
think of it
landscape
as
design.
the taller one, the one in the background,
Hmm.
kind of like a green screen, I guess,
Yeah,
or a
absolutely,
curtain or something
absolutely.
like that, and then
Yeah,
it features the other
that's
plants.
right. That's right. So you want something that's really contrasting. So I love. You ever heard of Itea?
No, I haven't
Okay,
heard of
so
that.
Itea is, I think it's a native. Really nice plant. Has beautiful white blooms, and it's just a lot of blooms, and it's such a stark contrast to a dark green plant that's in the
Mhm.
background. So
Yeah.
that would be a good one. Any butterfly bush, anything that you want to use this flowering would be great
I'm
for
thinking
that.
anything red, anything yellow.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't like red, but
Oh man, I'm
this.
all into red. Oh,
So
I know.
so yeah, but yeah, it's one of our design principles we use is we try to
Mhm.
create a background, just kind of a solid background, and then we'll try to have something contrasting in front of that. So
Mhm.
another principle you can use is mass plantings. You talked about you may have a plant here or there, and they may be pretty, but there's no unity there. So that's another one of our
It's
landscape.
busy. I
Yeah,
can't
it's busy.
concentrate because
Yeah.
it's just.
So one of the things we try to do is, and when I teach landscape design, I try to emphasize mass your plants together. So put your like plants together. So one they use a lot in the summertime is called coleus. You know coleus, right?
Yeah, here's the thing. He comes
So
with all these really pretty names, and we remember it like the Southern, over my granddad's
yeah.
pronounced it on the farm.
Well, yeah, coleus is. I mean, that's pretty common. I don't know of any other common names for coleus, but coleus is a herbaceous ornamental. It's not really a flower. It's more of the flower. I mean, the leaf texture has
Mhm.
different colors. You can get like a burgundy one. There's green ones, and all the different
Mhm.
shades of green. And I mean, there's a tons of different colors of coleus. But let's say you're going to a shopping mall or something like that. They will use those in a mass of color. So they'll plant, you know, 500 of these together, and
Mhm.
it's all a solid color. So
Mhm.
keep your colors all massed together, and that will make your yard look so much better. I
Well, they're
mean,
doing it the
it's
right way. And Boaz is really famous for this. So you'll see,
mhm.
like, right where the stop sign or a red light is, they'll have just a bunch of pansies.
Yeah,
And it could be different colors, but they're all pansies out there. And it's just, it's appealing to the eye.
yeah, absolutely. Anything
It's friendly.
that's yeah, and anything
Mhm.
that has adds some color to your landscape is going to be great. So,
Mhm.
so one of the other design principles I really like to emphasize is if you want to do something to make your yard look and just stand out from the crowd, the biggest and cheapest thing that I think you can do, or most beneficial and cheapest thing that you can do, is make a defined bed line. So if you want, like you in front of your house, you have plants in front of your house.
Mhm.
Um, I use what's called a half moon shovel, and so it's kind of shaped. It's like a half moon. It's like a
Mhm.
half a circle,
Mhm.
and define that bed line, and that offers a lot of different benefits. So you can kind of dig down maybe 6 or 8 inches, and then taper. You dig straight down, and then you taper
Mhm.
the bed back towards the plants.
Mhm.
So, a couple of benefits to that. One, you can cut your grass, and you don't have to worry about any running into any kind of edging. You don't have to weed eat or string line trim. That's the official term for it. We
Mhm.
call it weed eating. Um,
Mhm.
so you don't have to do that. Also, when you're cutting the grass, make sure you throw it the other direction, not into the
You could throw
bed.
a seed in there, right?
Yeah, that's right. If you have, especially Bermuda grass, if you have Bermuda grass and you throw that into your bed, you're going to have that
Mhm.
growing in your bed. So
It'll be in there.
yeah, so stay away from that. But also, it provides you a smooth edge, and if you mulch your bed
Mhm.
and then you have green grass, you have a stark contrast of color, and
Mm.
so that really makes your landscape
It just
pop.
looks clean. It looks
Absolutely, yeah, and it makes it
streamlined.
yeah, and it makes it easy to edge too. So you can get an edger or turn your weed eater or string line trimmer. You can turn it up sideways and just kind of go through there and edge. So it makes it much easier to edge too. But that is the number one thing, in my opinion, that makes landscapes stand out from the crowd, and it doesn't cost you anything unless you want to buy a Half Moon shovel. So
I think I'm going to do that.
yeah,
I
it's
think
great.
that would be really good. And you just use my terminology, cheap.
Yeah.
So you're saving
Yeah.
money. It's what we talk about on this show, remember? We talk about saving money. What do you say about someone that had a message saying, I don't know if I can find it real quick, for the next time you're on the show. So this lady is planning on buying a Japanese maple. She wants
Okay.
to know what you think about putting
Great.
it in the center. And I know where she lives. I know what she's talking about. She has this huge front yard, almost like what I've got. Huge front yard. So she wants to put a circle and have a Japanese maple. What kind of plant should she plant around it, or should she? She wants to put a bunch of flowers around it.
You can put flowers around that. It just kind of depends on what the look is. And it depends on the species of Japanese maple. I mean, or the cultivar. So a cultivar is a cultivated variety. That's where the name comes from. And so those are plants that have been grafted, or they may find one naturally occurring and they take a cutting of it and then they try to propagate it and make new plants out of it. And so that would be a cultivated variety. And there's a lot of different kinds of Japanese maples. I think of the dissectums. It's Acer palmatum dissectum. But sorry, it's a
What he
scientific name.
said.
But yeah, it's we have arching types that only grow maybe 3 or 4 feet tall, and so those are that type, and they kind of hang to the ground. So you wouldn't want to plant anything around those. There's some that the straight species of Japanese maple, Acer palmatum. You could put a ground cover below that, or I wouldn't put a whole lot of showy plants around it, because a Japanese maple, in my opinion, is a focal point.
It's a thing of beauty.
That's right. It's something that you want to focus on. In my opinion, as a designer, I would say mulch around it and leave it alone, because you want to focus that, especially if it's a coral bark. I love coral bark. Those are the ones with the red stems and yellow leaves. Beautiful, beautiful. That's something you want as a focal point in your yard. So don't distract from that. Use its beauty. I mean, that's why you have one. So I would just use that and just mulch around it. Make sure the mulch is not piled up next to the trunk, and go out at minimum to where what we refer to as the drip line, which is the edge of the canopy of the tree, and mulch all the way to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So many beautiful things you can. I am so glad I'm taking these classes. I encourage you to do that. The very next round, when you guys have classes, you need to go ahead and sign up for that.
Yeah, we'll be in Gadsden in the fall, so that'll be where our class is. So.
And I may take one there too.
Yeah, and then for people who are not in Alabama, check with your local extension office. They have there's Master Gardener classes all over the country. So check with your local extension. They probably have some kind of Master Gardener program. So.
And we're a little different here in the South. We have different zones.
Absolutely.
So, what applies here is not necessarily going to apply. I know we have one of our class members is from New York.
Yeah.
And she's a little shocked at some of the things we do here in the South.
Yeah.
But what we do here doesn't work there.
Yeah, and that's, I think I've mentioned before, I get a lot of phone calls from people who have moved into North Alabama recently, and they have no idea about our climate. They're real surprised. Yeah, they're real surprised in the summertime when they get
and
here.
We can have 4 seasons in one day.
Yes, we can, and it's coming up on those 4 season days.
We're doing it now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we do have different climates, especially even in Alabama we have different. They can grow things down on the coast that we can't grow here in North Alabama. So
I'm kind of jealous of some of those things they can grow down there.
But then we can grow things that they can't.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
There's a trade-off there. So
Jim Ziegler, that's at you.
So like citrus trees. Alabama used to have a booming citrus industry. The town of Satsuma, that's actually an orange variety, is a Satsuma. If you've never had one, go find some, because they're delicious and they're seedless. So. But yeah, those are great. But but yeah, there's all kind of climatic zones here in Alabama, and you have those your hardiness zones is what they're called. So we're 7B. You go a little bit north of here into Jackson County, up in Scottsboro, maybe a little north of Scottsboro, and that's 7A. Get up towards Nashville, that's getting into 7A into 6B.
Mentone, I'm sure, is a little different too.
Yeah,
because
Mentone's a
they
little bit
snow
different.
when we don't have it.
Yeah. So you just got to really be, it's not an exact science, but there's some data out there
Pretty close out there.
Yeah,
It sure is.
yeah.
And then another thing we got to watch out too is soil. Like we have a sandy soil here, and then our neighbors up in Mentone is totally different up there. So we got to know about the soil.
Well, they're on the mountain. They're on Lookout Mountain. So and Lookout Mountain's a little bit different. So we're on Sand Mountain, which is kind of a sandy plateau, and
Phil calls it Rock Mountain.
Yeah,
Look at a lot of rocks here on this land.
Yeah. So in my house, I live in Arab. So Arab's got my yard's a pretty sandy loam, and it's a great place to grow plants. But I don't have time to grow plants. Unfortunately,
you're too busy training me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have time to even have a garden. So, but yeah, it's a good place to. Any kind of sandy soil is good. But that's not to say, if you have a clay soil, you're not out of luck. You can still grow things in clay.
Oh, yeah.
It's harder. You have to do some more work, but the biggest thing is don't use sand. Sand and clay make concrete. So stay away from sand. The thing you want to do is integrate organic matter. So if you don't have a compost bin, start you a compost bin or a compost pile. And we've got some articles on that on our website on aces.edu. Just look for compost. And start your compost pile, and then start integrating that into your garden or your landscape. That will make the biggest difference in your landscape or your garden, especially your garden.
It will, and you got to have some patience with it. I want it done yesterday. I'm one of those. It does take some time.
It does
to make it work.
If you want to speed up the process, you need to turn it. So the more often you turn it, the faster it's gonna. It's getting all that oxygen and stuff worked into there, and it will degrade much faster. So.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another little shortcut too. We put lots of cardboard in ours. Can't be anything. You've told us about this. It can't be anything that has a film of anything.
Waxy.
It can't be waxy. And make sure you take off all of the tape and whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
And all that stuff that's on it. But I found little shortcuts. I've taken advantage of all the rain we've been having. So what I'm doing is I'm laying I'm laying it out on the ground, and the rain is hitting it, and it's making it softer. Otherwise, I've been cutting it.
Yeah.
And that takes forever to do.
It does.
So it makes it softer. So as it has rained on it and it's dampened that cardboard, I'm just tearing it.
Yeah.
And putting it in there.
Yeah, and that's fine. And a lot of people want to use cardboard as a sheet mulch. That's what we refer to it as. There's some debate amongst the horticulturists and scientists out there of whether that's good or not. So I may be stirring the pot here, so don't blame me. But there's some scientific evidence that show that using cardboard as a mulch is actually detrimental, because a lot of people lift up their cardboard. Oh, there's worms there. The worms aren't there at the top for no reason. They're trying to get oxygen, so you're cutting off the oxygen to not only your earthworms but also to your plants. And gas exchange is extremely important in plants. They will root better when they can breathe.
Supposed to do a compost pile.
Yeah, it is. So just use your compost, and if you want to integrate that, your organic matter. That's what you're trying to do. Is you're trying to build organic matter. Gotcha. That's the most important. And in Alabama, we have such poor soils. Our organic, I think it's 1% to 2% is what our organic layer is. So, as a whole across the state. So, so the more organic matter you can build into your soil, the more healthy your plants are going to be.
One of my friends, Deja Lee, is a regular guest on the show as well. She loves to garden, and she's going to take your Master Gardener class, by the way. And so Deja Lee says she calls it the lasagna method in her compost pile.
Yeah. I haven't read a lot of evidence on that, so I'm still jury's still out in my mind.
Depends on how much rain you get, I think.
Yeah. So I need to do a little more investigation on that, so I can't really weigh in on that. But I know a lot of people are doing it now. So my biggest thing is sheet mulches as a mulch. Covering up your plants, trying to keep weeds from growing out. There's much better methods to control weeds.
Well, you just got to watch the worms. What are they doing?
Yeah. So.
And they seem to be smarter than we are. So if they're trying to get oxygen, that's got to tell us something, most definitely. Yeah. We're going to have to go into a commercial break, and we're going to be right back in just a few minutes. So y'all hang in there, okay? Lots more information coming. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors, and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018. At Liberty Bank, we're all about community, whether it's to help with a charity fundraiser or help families in need. Toys at Christmas or a local football team, we're here for you. You see, we realize the importance of family. Sometimes it's to build a new home or necessary home repairs. We're here for you. If you like the feel of a small town bank with all the conveniences of a big city bank, we're here to serve you. You will find us at any of our convenient locations in DeKalb, Marshall, Etowah, and Blount counties in North Alabama. You can call and speak with any of our friendly staff at 256-659-2175 or check us out on the web at libertybankal.com. And thank you for your support of our community. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender. Begin a great year and save big money with these specials at Albertville Foodland Plus. A 5-pound bag of red or gold potatoes only $2.99 each. Warm up with Campbell's Chunky Soup, 2 for $4. Slim down with gold salads, only $2.99 each. And make sure to check out the deli with fresh veggies and tasty pork chops or hand-battered chicken fingers, only $5.99. Check us out on the web at shop.foodlandgrocery.com. Let Rhonda at Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC take the burden off you for all your tax needs. I know because Rhonda has been taking care of my business since 2013. I feel Rhonda works for me because she knows the direct questions to ask to better benefit my unique business in order for me to get back the biggest refund possible. Rhonda is an ongoing student, and she knows tax laws are in a constant change every year. Call 256-281-9903 for an appointment to take the dread out of getting your taxes done. Rhonda is located at 11968 U.S. Highway 431 in Boaz. Again, that number is 256-281-9903. And let Rhonda's Elite Tax LLC champion your personal and business taxes. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant.
I'm Mike Lindell, and my employees and I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. With everything going on right now, your rest is so important. That's why we're having the biggest My Pillow sale ever. Not only are my bed pillows as low as $19.98, but you can get the best body pillows ever. Regular $89.98, now only $29.98. Take your rest on the go with our Roll and Go Anywhere My Pillows for only $14.98. And we have our new couch and accent pillows. They aren't just for looks. They have My Pillow's patented adjustable fill that gives you that amazing My Pillow comfort. In this economy, you get the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code and you get deep discounts on body, couch, bolster pillows, and so much more, including my original bed pillows for as low as $19.98. Please order now while quantity.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer.
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
We are back. Good afternoon. My name is Donna Feazell, and I'm your host of The Edge on IC Radio. You can find us on the internet, icradio.media. Download the free app. It's really simple. And, we also have a top 50 song request, and we do this every Friday. And so if you would like to request someone's music, you can do that free of charge. One of our guests said, Donna, I don't want to put any more extra work on you and Phil. She said, y'all work really hard. And I said, actually, you're taking some of the workload away from us because we're not having to insert anything. So we appreciate you doing that. And our singers also appreciate that. We have new ones, like who's top number 1 this week may be number 50 next week. It just depends on how many of their fans go ahead and put the request. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, as well as Abundant TV, which is found worldwide on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. There's a lady I knew from Talladega. She lived up on Cheehaw Mountain. Beautiful lady. I mean, she was in her 80s and just looked absolutely fabulous. Looked like a movie star. Worked in her yard, but had the longest, most beautiful fingernails I have ever seen in my life. And I said, I don't get it. You work in your yard all the time. You don't even wear gloves. How are your fingernails so beautiful? Soap. So what she would do before she got out in the yard, she would just claw the soap. And so the soap, see, gets inside your fingernails right here. And she said it's easier to clean. It's not going to tear up your fingernails. And it's that waxy part of the soap that works. So that's just another tip. And everybody called her Aunt May. She wasn't my aunt, but everybody just called her Aunt May. And she was just a beautiful lady. Again, looked like a movie star. Long, beautiful fingernails, manicured her own nails. And she still worked in the garden. And flowers everywhere. Vegetables everywhere. Just one of those ladies that really had it going on. She was just one of the reasons I think I really stuck with gardening and my grandparents.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, so she was just a neat lady. Let's talk about pruning.
Sure.
I really like, you can see I've just about worn this one out. I like this one. I like the way it springs and everything. This one I like okay, but the problem is sometimes this gets stuck. Maybe Phil fixed it. Sometimes this thing gets stuck when I am pruning. Got alcohol here. You got to clean that thing, and that's the one thing you said. If you don't remember anything in this,
sanitation
clean
number 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
So there's a couple ways you can do it. For sanitizing, I recommend just some regular alcohol. Would be fine. You can also use a 10% bleach solution, just something to kill that bacteria or virus or whatever it may be.
Because you're spreading it if you don't do that.
Well, yeah, one of the things in pruning, one of the 3 things I recommend always prune. One of them is dying or diseased or dead branches. You never know what that branch is carrying, so cut it out just like a doctor. You go to the doctor. You cut your finger off. You want it to be sanitized, right? So same way with trees and shrubs and anything you're going to prune, you want it to be sanitary. So especially if you're cutting things like, you prune tomatoes. You know, you really need to sanitize before pruning tomatoes or roses, anything like that. Always, you know, I have a squirt bottle that has alcohol in it. I just kind of squirt it real quick, done deal. So it just something that, you know, something quick like that. You could also, you know, if you want to do a deep clean, which I need to do this myself, so I'm preaching
I need
to
to
the
do
choir
that
here.
with this one right here. I know.
But you could take it apart and, you know, soak it in some kind of cleaning solution and just kind of take a wire brush or just something to, you know, just clean it up a little bit. So I've had my pruners since 2001 maybe, and I've never cleaned them. So that's terrible. I shouldn't even admit that on here. But yeah, you know, you do need to clean them. I would, you know, recommend, you know, once a year, maybe every other year or something like that. But every year would be a good practice.
Yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely.
But
and,
definitely
shovels
sanitize.
and Phil has always done this.
yeah,
So, you know, we're in a hurry, it starts raining on us or whatever, and he'll say, I'm not coming in until I clean this shovel.
yeah,
You know, so he'll sit there and spray it down really good. So that's a
Absolutely.
good practice too.
absolutely. That is definitely good, especially if you're digging into soil that may have some kind of fungus in it, because soil contains a lot of fungi. So, you know, even if you just wash it off with a hose and clean it up, that will go a really long way into spreading disease or preventing the spread of disease. So,
Let's talk about water features in landscaping.
yeah,
And that's something I want to do. We have enough rock here. I could actually build a house
yeah,
and it would look like Geraldine High School with the rock.
yeah.
You could honestly do that. So how can you use rocks in landscaping, or do's or don'ts about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can use rocks. You know, depending on what kind of rocks you have. You know, a lot of people will take a rock and they'll try to make a flower bed, and that's totally fine. I don't like it personally. It is a cheap way of making a bed, but you get so many weeds creeping through in between those rocks. It is
That's
almost
a nightmare.
impossible.
That's what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah, so you know, you may take your string line trimmer, not weed eater, and you try to cut that out of there. We still got weeds growing up in between there. Well, then you want to spray them with Roundup or something like that, and then it ends up, you know, overspraying onto the other grass, and you have a section, you know,
It's
a couple of
dead
inches
spots.
that's dead. So, not great, but I understand people do that. That's totally fine. It's just not my preference, you know. So, but you know, you can, like, if you want to do a water feature, they sell kits that come in. I forgot what the name of them are, but they sell kits that you can get that's you can just put it straight on the ground and build up around it. You know, take where the waterfall is going to flow into, and then take that dirt where you dug that hole where your water's going to stand, and then pile it up around your falls. So it's basically a plastic bin that's maybe 2 foot by 2 foot, and that's the beginning of your falls. And then you take the dirt and pile it up around those that plastic bin, and then you kind of make your rocks. I mean, we built one several years ago down in Auburn, and there was probably 8 inches of fall. So we had very little to work with, but we built it up using the dirt, and it was actually a pondless waterfall. So we dug down maybe, you know, 2 feet, something like that, pretty deep, and we filled it in. We put a layer of plastic down, like thick rubber, and that would keep weeds and stuff. That will suppress weeds. It's not going to break down either. So.
Nothing's going to grow there.
Yeah, so, you know, and it also retains water, and that's really what we're trying to do. But you would, instead of having an open, you know, pond there, you would fill that in with just little pebbles, little rocks, and then that would be a pondless waterfall. And so you can, you know, that keeps animals out. That keeps animals from coming and drinking there. You know, some people may want to attract some of that, but sometimes they fall in. So you don't want, you know, frogs and reptiles and things. That's you know, that's the way to keep them out, is do a pondless.
Because it'll get dirty and
Yeah, that's
a lot
right.
of maintenance there.
Yeah, and with any type of water feature, there is going to be a lot of maintenance, because it's going to get algae, and you have to treat it all the time. But you can, I mean, you could make a little waterfall in your backyard, even though it's fairly flat. So So it's possible, but you can arrange those rocks to where it kind of snakes through your yard, and you can make a little waterfall and just have something that you can listen to the sound of the water falling.
Be good to relax when you come
Yeah,
off a hard
absolutely.
day's work and that
Absolutely.
kind of thing. Thought about getting one and putting some little fish in it, but then it would just be too much of a temptation for my cat, I'm afraid. So I've decided not to do that. So
You could put some bass in there.
Yeah.
You could go out fishing in it. and
yeah,
stuff.
and a little I'm sure that's going to work.
Yeah.
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 We've been talking a lot about landscaping, and I'm into it. I'm digging it. I mean, digging it. I didn't really mean to say that, but I'm really loving it.
Yeah.
I do. So a lot of do's and don'ts. Some
Yeah.
of the things are you just don't think about. You
Mhm.
find a pretty plant, but let's talk about propagation.
Sure.
And we're learning so much. And again, you take these master classes. I'm already getting you some folks getting ready for this next class coming up. You get to take these little field trips,
hmm
and I'm having a blast doing this.
Yeah, it's fun. We did some propagation this past week, and we learned division. So that's a method of propagation. So we divided some ferns.
And that's money saving too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just went straight up to Lowe's, and I bought a fern, and got that fern, and we brought it in, and so we had 5 or 6 people in the class. And we divided that fern, how many ways? 8 ways, I believe we did. So we made new plants from that one fern, and all we did was just chop it up. So almost like you're chopping up a pie or a pizza. You just chop it different ways, and we had a little fern plant, and we put it in a little pot. And by the end of the year, or end of the season, you'll have a full-grown plant that you didn't pay anything for, other than the initial investment. So
Absolutely. And another thing, I've never been able to grow a fern or anything I would buy from a nursery. And I think it's too crowded. I think that might be the reason.
yeah, so anytime a fern, you can take it out of the pot, and if you have a lot of roots, typically you do, take it out and divide it. I mean, that's go get you some pots. You can put them in almost anything. The biggest thing is just make sure that it drains well. Anything you put in a pot, whether it's a container garden or if you're starting some vegetable seeds, that needs to be able to drain. Always has to be able to drain. That's the number one rule.
If you have a hole in the bottom of the pot, do you have to put rocks in it?
No.
Thank you
No,
for saying
you don't.
that.
No, you don't.
Because when you move them around, it just makes them heavier.
It does. You can actually I don't know if it's a best practice or not, but something you can do if you have some foam, some old floral foam, you can put that in the bottom of your container, and that way you don't have to use as much soil. So if you have a plant that's let's say you had a pot that's 18 inches deep. You could fill half of that up with your soil or with a foam, and water can still get in there, totally fine. But then you put soil on top of that, and you've reduced your cost of your soil.
That's
So,
good. And some things I'd just much rather growing up, especially mint.
Oh yeah,
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah,
I thought I'd never get rid of mint all over the yard.
mint. It's best to do
Very
it in
it's
container.
almost like kudzu.
It's probably worse than kudzu because you can kill kudzu. You can't kill mint.
No, it took a lot of digging to get that. What are some things you need to be thinking about right now? If you're going to, are we too late with seeding plants right now?
Right now, no, you're not. You can still seed plants if you want to start. Get your tomato seeds. That's what typically people want to start. Your peppers, anything like that. You can start anything. So make sure put them in a tray. You can go buy plastic trays at Lowe's or Walmart's have them too. So you can buy a plastic tray. Fill it with some potting mix, and then just start your seed in there. Typically, the rule is if you have a seed 1.5 times the seed's diameter, and sometimes seed is just like tiny. So you just kind of brush something over it and it's totally fine. So 1.5 seeds, the general times the size of the seed is the general rule of how deep you want to plant.
Because you can bury them too deep.
You can definitely can. So just make sure it's in a sunny location. You keep it wet, not soaking wet, but just moist, and then and you keep it in a sunny spot, and you'll have some seeds popping up every now and then. Buy quality seed. Make sure you get it from a reputable source. Yeah. And then, especially things like tomatoes, you'll be ready to go when it gets warm enough.
Can't
So
wait.
it's not warm this week.
I know.
So-
I'm just dying to get outside and get
Yeah,
this stuff going.
yeah.
So we're trying to do some pruning and stuff like that right now. Now let's talk about walkways. This has something to do with landscaping as well. So we've got monkey grass and all this
Yeah,
other stuff.
yeah.
And we learned from you last year a really, really good thing to do is just get your lawnmower out.
Yeah.
Plow
So
those suckers down.
yeah. If you have what we refer to as monkey grass here in the South, they would call it something
What's
else
the
up north.
official name?
Liripe.
Okay, see.
Yeah, Liripe
deal.
muscari or Liripe spicata. There's two different kinds. One's a spreading type and one's a clumping type.
Uh-huh.
So most of what we see is the clumping type. That's Liripe muscari. So it's tough. You can't kill that stuff. So take
You
your
literally can't.
streamline trimmer, your weed eater, and cut it down. Right now is a perfect time to do that. And trust me, it will work. I've seen it done hundreds of
Oh, it was
times.
so much more beautiful this past year than it has
Yeah,
ever been
yeah.
before. And so we didn't want to get rid of it. It's something my grandmother planted,
Yeah.
and so we wanted to keep that remembrance of her.
Yeah,
But it just always looked so ugly.
yeah,
We thought we would kill it by doing that.
yeah.
Best thing we could have ever done.
Yeah, and the mounding type, divide it just like we talked about with the ferns. Take that and just with a shovel and just chop it up, and then you have little plants, and then plant it all along through there. So that's the best way to do that. Now the spreading type, you can do the same thing with the spreading type, but it doesn't clump. I mean, that's obviously what it does, but it does spread along. So it's a great ground cover. So, but yeah.
Yeah, something good to do if you just want some green.
Yeah.
And again, it's going to work really well.
Yep.
We've still got some good time. I'm glad because we're still talking about landscaping, propagating. And so I found you could almost propagate anything, can't you?
Yeah, just about. There's some things that are harder to propagate. Some of the woody species, they have specific requirements that you need to do, stages of growth that they're in. There's just a lot. But usually what we do, and we learned this Thursday, is use a rooting hormone. You can buy a rooting hormone. There's several brands of it. I bought like a little jar of it. It's about a couple inches tall.
That's what I got.
And you can, if you have a woody plant, you can, dip it in that powder, in that rooting hormone, and then tap it off. So get the excess off. One jar lasts you probably most of your life. Yeah, you use very little of it. So
Yeah.
dip it in there, tap the excess off, and then just stick it in some potting mix, and then just keep it moist. If you got one of those warmers, you can buy those at Lowe's. I saw those.
About 12 bucks.
Yeah, so you can keep those and keep the roots warm. That's really good to have too. But if you have, keep a couple of leaves on there. If it's a big leaf, you want to cut that leaf in half. It's not going to hurt the plant, but you can propagate that way. It makes it easy. So there's a lot of things that will root fairly easy, and experiment. Google's your friend. If you want to know how to propagate, name your plant. Just say Google, not Google. Go to Google and say propagate whatever plant you do, and there's probably a ton of YouTube videos that'll tell you how to do it. So
I can imagine you'd want to do mint, but just
yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't want mint to take over the entire world.
So one of the ones we didn't talk about last week is air layering, and air layering is actually really a interesting way of propagating, especially woody plants. So essentially, what you do, let's say you have a cherry tree, for example. Cherries are beautiful. Not the fruiting cherries that we eat. The flowering cherries that are ornamental plants. Beautiful plants, great alternative to Bradford pears. So don't plant a Bradford pear. Cut them down. If you have them, cut them down. They're terrible trees.
The cleanup on those.
I won't get into that. Just know if you want to find out how terrible they are, just give me a call. But if you want to air layer a cherry, you want to make a new cherry tree, what you do is you take a limb and you wound it. So you take your knife and you just cut a little bit out of it on each side, and then you take some peat moss, soak it in water, put that peat moss around that wound, and then take saran wrap and wrap it around that and put you some pipe cleaners or bread ties or anything with a wire in it that you can tie it off, and then keep it there for probably maybe, I think it's 8 weeks. I could be wrong on that, but you do keep it there for an amount of time, and eventually
And
it will
don't
grow.
peek in at it like I would probably do.
Yeah,
Just
don't just leave it alone, and you can do this all over your
That's
tree.
my problem. I want to open it up. Is it doing anything?
Yeah, so you do this all over your tree, and then after a couple of months, you go back and then you cut it off just past
Already
that.
got some?
Yeah, and then it will have formed roots on there, and then you plant that in a pot, and then you've got you a cherry tree,
A grand
and
idea.
that's called air layering. Yep.
Mhm.
So it's an interesting way to do things. So go out and try it. Google it. Just Google air layering, and you can find out a lot of info about it. But that's the basic steps of it. It's very
Now, is there a
easy.
particular time you can't do that, or would it matter what time of the year it is?
It's probably not going to do anything in the winter, but like into the spring, you'll probably get more. So I'm not an expert on air layering. I should be, but yeah, you don't want to do it in the wintertime months. It probably wouldn't do a whole lot in the wintertime because it's fairly dormant. So, but yeah, in the spring when it's putting on new growth, that's a great time to do that. So.
Well, let me ask you another question. This is about roots, about planting seeds and that kind of thing. So I have hydroponics, and I'm loving it. And so right now I have some plants I've had to take out of it because the roots were so big they were kind of clogging up the system. So
Yep.
the water wasn't running freely, which was a grand thing. So how soon should you take... and let's just forget hydroponics. Let's just say I've planted a tomato seed.
Yeah.
It's in a small pot.
Yeah.
How soon should I take it? Because I don't want to plant it outside yet.
Yeah.
We've got frost coming up this week.
Yep.
So but I've got to do something because it's beginning. I can tell by the leaves. I've got to do something.
Yeah, so really tomatoes, they're one of the most unusual plants out there. You're supposed to plant tomatoes deep. So typically, I don't know how you plant your tomatoes.
Deep.
So when you dig down really deep. So really the taller it is, the better it is, because the reason why is because tomatoes can root. They can form a root on any part of their stem. It's called an adventitious tissue, and that adventitious tissue can form a root. So really, and I just learned this, it's terrible, I just learned this, but you can actually plant tomatoes sideways.
Now that's what
So-
my granddad used to do.
Yes, and the reason why is because if you plant it sideways, it's going to develop those roots along that stem. So the taller your tomato plant is, the more rooting you have available, and then it'll have a good base on it. Now, this only works with indeterminate tomatoes. So the two types of tomatoes are determinates and indeterminates. And so determinates are typically called bush tomatoes. So if you have a bush type tomato, it doesn't really work with those. But if you have indeterminate, which means it continues to grow and grow and grow and grow, those are the kinds you can plant sideways. So
That's what my granddad would do, and
Yeah.
he would have tomatoes. I mean, it created a really good root system. So
Yep.
even in storms, the tomatoes would still be standing erect.
Yeah.
With tomato, and I think it makes it a stronger tree. Or I'm calling it a tree, but
Yeah.
it makes it a stronger plant because tomatoes
Yeah.
hold on to it,
yeah,
even
absolutely.
if they're ripe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so plant your tomatoes sideways, or at least bury them really deep. It's not going to matter if you plant those too deep. That's the only plant you should do it that way, though.
Yeah. So he would break off the leaves like this
Yeah.
plant. He would start from seed, so he would have a pretty tall, before it was time to plant them.
Yeah.
So he would just break off the leaves, and his big
Yeah.
thing, he would say, "Well, don't cut them off, break them off with your fingernail." And I'd say, "Why?" And he'd say, "Because it causes these little hairy things to grow out, and then the roots are going to come from it." Now, I
Well,
don't know if that's actually
So that it doesn't come from the hairs. That's just part of them. Those are called trichomes, but they're it doesn't come from the hairs. It's just in the cell of that stem.
So
they
if you
have the
cut it, it really
potential.
wouldn't be that big of a
No,
deal.
it's not a big deal.
Okay.
The only thing is you want to leave 2 or 3 sets of leaves on the top, and that's the part you want to leave exposed.
That's the point I thought he was killing them.
Yeah.
Because it seems like he would just take almost every leaf off.
Yeah. Keep everything, cut the bottom leaves especially off, and then leave about 2 or 3 sets of leaves above ground, and then you can kind of angle it down, and so those are sticking up a little bit. But plants are what's called gravitropic, which means they they defeat gravity. So they are attracted, or they defy gravity is essentially what they're doing. So they're going to grow upright, and they'll correct themselves. So if that thing they used to sell on, made for TV product, the little tomato thing you plant upside down, and which is a terrible idea, because plants, since they are gravitropic, you would plant your plants and they would grow down and then start curving up. So they're still going to grow up, because that's just nature. That's what they do.
Thing.
That's their thing. So, but yeah, you do that with your tomatoes, and you prune the lower leaves. That will go a long way.
Because his almost looked like a tree by the end of the season.
Yeah. Indeterminate tomatoes can get really, really big. So, but yeah, but that's the way you do tomatoes. So. Hopefully people have much better luck this year than they had last year here in Alabama, at
I had
least.
some good luck, but I still say it was using the concrete pavers.
It could
because
be.
it kept them off. Because I'm going to tell you, we had so much rain. It was incredible. And if I had planted them into the ground, it would have been like everybody else's tomatoes. They would have flooded to death.
Yeah, well, I had a lot of calls last year about flooded tomatoes and, cracking. When you have a lot of water, you get a lot of cracking, and you get a lot of disease pressure, and southern blight is a really bad one.
What can you do about blight?
Depends on what it is. Sometimes it's just in the soil. If you get blight, if it's southern blight, the best thing to do is pull it up and go buy some tomatoes, because there's really nothing you can do about that. So again, sanitation. There's things you could prevent. When there's fungus in the soil, it's really hard to defeat that. So
again, you just need to know the soil type so you can know what.
Yeah, absolutely, and rotate your crops. So don't plant in the same place every year. Rotate. Don't put your tomatoes there. Move them over here the next year. That will also help a lot. So
because we're going to plant the beans on the sides. It used to be an old greenhouse frame, and somebody was going to throw it in the trash, and I said, no, I'll take it. So we got it, and it's just the perfect thing to let the beans grow up.
Yeah.
Like that. So,
absolutely.
Now, the one thing I found about hydroponics is it's not really bean friendly.
Yeah, they probably get a little too big.
Yeah, they are. They're too big. So, like 1 out of 10 seeds has come up. Snow peas. I've done some of those. And some green beans and that kind of
Well, hydroponics doesn't necessarily have to be in like a tray. I guess that's kind of what you have. You can actually do hydroponics in what's called perlite. That's the white stuff. It's very, very lightweight. You can actually do hydroponics and plant it in a pot, and just have that water flowing over that constantly. So like the what's those things called? The Aero Gardens. All those are basically a hydroponic system, and they just have water constantly running over their roots. So.
Now, I may be he tells me I overthink sometimes. So I may be overthinking this, and this is pertaining to the pump, whether that's with the hydroponics or outside in your fountain. You need to keep that thing clean, I would think, because some gunk can...
Absolutely, absolutely.
Maintenance on the pump itself.
Yeah, you definitely need to, treat your water with something like an algicide that keeps the algae from building up in it. And then there's other ways of cleaning it, but make sure you keep an eye on that.
And I clean that bucket out every couple of days. I'm cleaning it out.
Yeah.
And so I'm using vinegar, just white vinegar, and I'll just clean it with that, and then I'll put water in it and put just a tablespoon of vinegar in it.
So one of the things with algae is actually, if it has any sunlight, you're probably going to get algae. So that's get a dark container to keep your water in, and that will help cut down your algae. So yeah. That's why if you see a rain barrel or something like that, it'll be black. It stops the sunlight from growing algae. So.
Absolutely. Brian, we're going to have to call it a day. Thank you so much. Hours. We need you on for like 5 hours. But thank you again so much. And for everything you do, and I appreciate the class. And I'm encouraging you. This class is worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully everybody will join us for the next class.
Absolutely. So. You take care. And again, thank you so much for watching. You're the apple of my eye. I appreciate you doing that. And we also appreciate our sponsors. We've got some awesome ones. And appreciate you, Brian Brown. We have awesome guests. You take care. We'll see you in just a few minutes with another awesome guest.